right now. Good morning, everybody. It is Ruthie Rocks with Jimmy Dague, and sorry we're late, but my computer crashed, but it came back on, thank God, and we're here. I want to talk a little bit. Jimmy, I'm going to hide you for a minute, do these stats for everybody.
Great.
There we go. So we're back to 24 days of inventory. That's the really good news. We listed 148 homes yesterday. That's really good news. 39 of them were under 436,000, and that's really good news. The other stats, we're selling 92 houses a day so far this month. It's early yet. Last year in February, we were doing 125. So just to put things in perspective, keep listing and farming. And we have a great video to show you today. Tom Ferry is interviewing Bob Hahn. And Bob Hahn, let me get Jimmy back up here because it takes a second. Hide this. And Jimmy, we'll put you here. Okay, so Bob Hahn is called Notorious R.O.B is really his name, Rob Hahn. And he is a trend follower. And I know, Jimmy, you're going to really enjoy this. If there was ever a time for anybody to farm, or if you have ever had any doubts about farming, this may change your opinion. And what's happening, like Rob will tell you on the video, I mean, how long has Uber been around? And then all of a sudden it took 2 years and it was like everybody Ubers. Mm-hmm. And so the new trends that he's going to tell you about, share with you in real estate, I think we all need to pay attention to, because iBuyer platforms have been around since 2014, I believe. So that's a long time. And he's going to talk about that, about what's going to happen to buyers' agents. He's going to talk about how real estate agents are going to end up being paid like commercial brokers and or lawyers, why we have to have more product knowledge. So many neat things in this conversation. So, Jimmy, let's watch it. Do you want to say anything, though? First?
No. Let's go. He's
okay.
Good. I've seen him before.
Yeah, he's really good. I'm going to mute me and you. And Jimmy, if you want me to stop it to make a comment, put your finger up, and then I'll do that, because I would, we can do that, and then people might get some of our insights as well as theirs.
I'm ready to take notes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Right. So let's go a different direction.
Okay.
I am convinced, as like only a few times in my career have I come out and said, here's what I think is going to happen in the future of real estate. And I think back to like 2014, 15, when I'm like, teams are going to take over the world.
Yep.
Teams are going to be sold like brokerages, because all these publicly traded companies got to buy somebody, right? Big whales are going to dominate, aka hedge funds are going to just buy as much as they can, right? So I'm making these, I don't know, vision, proclamation, whatever you want to call it. And then more recently, it's been more about the on-demand consumer, right? And, so much of what we talked about at the 2020 summit. But now I'm thinking a lot about these sort of existential threats. And a lot of it is just the lack of insight, foresight, information around blockchain, right? Smart contracts. And then the companies that have done an extraordinary job, Rob, basically disintermediating the agent and saying, whether it's buy from us direct or come to us direct, and then we will then sell that lead to somebody else, right? I made the prediction that 50% of all transactions in the next 4 or 5 years, 50% will have a referral fee attached to it in some way. Whether that's relocation or an arbitrage company, agent refer. There's what I call egregious and non-egregious referral fees. Non-egregious, 25%.
Sure.
Right? It's the industry. It's always been that way. And it's interesting talking to like a Gino Bafari, who's my personal client. He's like, well, let me give you the data on home services. We unpacked that. I can't share that here, but like we know what it is. We know what it is at Realogy. We know back in the day of Prudential, Earl Lee. If it wasn't for relocation, that Prudential wouldn't have any revenue. So we see this, but you look at it differently.
I look at it a little differently.
What are the 3 to 5 biggest things that you think this is what's coming next, what people need to be prepared for?
So I think I wrote a post. I'm doing a little pivot this year. Right? It's not like I'm giving a consulting.
piss less people off? Like,
It's
what's
not
the...
even that. So here's the thing about, so I'm going to comment about this. I never set out to piss people
know.
off. I set out to tell it like I see it, and that happens to piss people off.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I don't do this to piss you off.
You,
But I
Mike
said,
Del Prete, and a few others that I
I'm
love.
look,
Like,
I mean, I'm just
think.
it is what it is, right? But I think there are 4 major mega trends that's going to influence everything, which therefore will influence real estate.
Yes.
Right? Demographics is one. We just talked about that. The second one to me is, we'll call it loosely inflation.
Yeah.
But it's basically money printing.
For sure.
For sure. And I think that is
startling if people knew how much money was printed just in the last 24 months.
So the 40% or so of the entire dollars in existence
In the last 2 years.
in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And we're now starting to see the impact of that. And there's all these things that flow out of that. So that's 2. The third one to me is blockchain, metaverse, all this stuff. But I call it, generally speaking, decentralization.
Yes.
Right. So the converse of what you said, like, you're right, the last 20 years, everything is centralized.
Yep.
Everything's going to Google, everything's going to Zillow.
Right. Right.
I kind of feel like the next big wave might be decentralization through a variety of ways.
Yep.
So that's the third one. And then the fourth and final one, I don't know how much of a mega trend is for the society as a whole, but for real estate especially, and this is the one that I think is probably the most near term, is the fact that the nature of agency will completely change. Essentially, buyer agency is not long for this world.
Yeah.
And I don't think as an industry we know yet what to do about that.
I didn't say yep like I agreed. I just said yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so here's the interesting thing, like over the last, I don't know, 3 years, I've had a lot of conversations around this specific topic.
Yes.
And this is my general takeaway.
We're
Most
talking
people,
DOJ, NAR.
all of it.
The reason why you should be really happy you pay all of your dues to the National Association of Realtors is right now. Right now. You're like, can I prepay for the next 5 years?
Except that I don't see them winning. But that's beside the point.
That's,
beside the point.
And we have to define what winning is.
And
in
we
this
have to get
case.
around that. But I think everyone I've spoken to the last 3 years or so, if they have paid any attention, and I'll ask, so it comes down to, it's a matter of when, not if. No one believes that our current system of cooperation and compensation will survive.
Yeah.
They just disagree on when things are going to change. And we have not yet thought through what that means then for brokers, for agents, for MLSs, for realtor associations, tech companies, for Zillow. Like, we just haven't done that.
But you and I are well traveled.
Yeah.
This is not unlike what you look at when you see South Africa, you see Australia, you see all of Europe, you see a lot of the more organized real estate Middle East, right? I mean, it's 1 and 1, it's 2 and 2, it's 3%. You guys figured out, then we'll see you afterwards. Like I think people get so landlocked in this North American, and I would even put all the major cities in Mexico up through Canada, that we've had this set way of doing things, buy side, sell side, right? So do you hallucinate? What is your hallucination? Do you think in the next couple of years we're going to see this evaporate on the buy side, and then the sell side's going to go to 3, or do you think it's going to be a 4 or 5?
I think the sell side goes to like 1.5 or so, maybe 2, right? That's
very Europe.
But that's why I say that.
Okay, but that doesn't work in Europe, and this is my central theme. The argument is, having been there for now a decade plus with one of my personal clients who has 30 some odd thousand agents, right? Remax of Europe, Michael Pulser and family. Yeah. We have been on this crusade, which feels right in Europe, right? We're going to get people to cooperate. Yeah. We're going to get agents to take a key from the seller and put it in a safe in the office. So when somebody calls and wants to see the property, we can take it out of the safe. I'm not kidding, people, and show them the apartment. That's going on right now. And we're seeing this progression towards maybe a more Western way of doing it, which is not the intent for my Europeans watching, but it's to serve the customer. How does this elimination of buy side actually serve the client?
I think so. So let me put it differently. It's not like you're going to outlaw buyer agency. Yeah. You're just going to outlaw sellers paying for it.
Yes.
I think that's what's coming.
How does that serve the customer?
Depends on who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Because the argument, I think, from the FTC, from the DOJ, from the that side, is this will drop the price. Right? It will make things cheaper. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. One of the things I do like about it, I'm not a huge fan necessarily. I'm kind of neutral, but there is one aspect of this that I am a big fan of, and this is something that you guys know very well, one of the biggest problems with our industry, and I've been saying this for 10 years, is the fact that you could have the very best, most professional agent, right, who's one of your personal clients and is up to date on every latest thing. Whether I use that guy or somebody who just got his license last week, I pay the same. That's bullshit. The fact that we have no price signals in this industry is total bull. And it's being maintained by the system that we have built over time. You know, it wasn't out of some nefarious evil purpose. Just let's cooperate. You bring me a buyer, I'll pay you, whatever. But
Rob, we see that. And first of all, I appreciate that perspective. And I think everybody listening, probably at least a lot of our clients just went, because we say, this is a skills market. This is a track record market. And right now, when there's no inventory, you don't want to go to the brand new agent and say, hey, find me a house. You want to call the best agent in town and say, who's got the pocket listings? How do I get access? How can I leverage your relationship? And like, I have 3 different attorneys, the low, mid, and gonna kill you.
That's right.
Right? Like, and you pay appropriately. Do you think it's going to go that way?
I think it's going to go that way.
Like that menu of services?
I think it's going to go, I really do think real estate will become a lot more like legal services. Right? Look, I mean, if you just need someone to draft a little,
legal Zoom, boom.
Do that, right? You don't really need it.
But that didn't work with iBuyer, with Power Buyer. Like we're seeing this sort of like oversimplification of the transaction, right? The ease of it. Like we're not seeing it work at scale. And maybe iBuyer is the wrong metaphor, but look at even the companies like Knock and Easy Knock and some of these that are making it easier. No one's doing it. It's such a small percentage.
No one's doing it.
It's such a small percentage of the transactions.
But it's so new. It's like literally brand new. That's like saying Bitcoin's market cap is only $1 trillion. Well,
Bitcoin's only 13 years old, and I'm strong on Bitcoin. So
but you know what I mean? Like iBuying was invented in 2014.
Yes.
So I'm like, chill out.
Okay.
Like, we'll see what Open Doors quarter.
Did Notorious R.O.B just tell me to chill out?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm kind of with you.
Right?
Yes. And maybe, listen, I'm obviously very jaded towards professionalism, the experience of agents, touting that track record. I don't believe new agents should come in the industry and just start. They should be on a team. They should be, or a teamerage or a brokerage that runs it the right way.
Mentorship, something.
Because the failure rate is the failure rate is the failure rate. The federal government getting involved in like how agents should be paid just drives. I mean, because when was the last time the federal government did something you're like, that worked?
Hey, dude, like in my personal life, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. So, you want, like, I think the state is just evil.
Yes.
I'm just literally describing what I see happening.
I know. Right? I'm not in any way
this
attacking.
Is what's going to happen.
It's frustrating.
Right? It's going to happen. And the only upside that I see coming from that is if we restore price signals to the industry. Then you start asking, why is this agent charging $500 an hour?
Right.
This other agent's charging $50 an hour.
Right.
Hey, I just need someone to just do some paperwork for me on this easy condo sale. $50 an hour, guys, fine. I'm doing some massive $35 million, oceanfront with complicated environmental issues. I need the $500 an hour guy. And I think we're going to see that play out. And I think we're going to have to build. So here's the challenge.
You and I have been around the RE.net, where I funny to even use that phrase anymore because that's so old school. But we've all seen the pitch decks on these deals of we're going to be the Uber of right, like we're going to make simplifying this and and again, you're right, it's early. I just think there's so much inertia around the normalcy and
of course.
It feels like. It feels like the crazy 1% over here and the crazy 1% over here are getting all the noise, and like 98% in the middle are like, I just want to buy a house.
Yeah, but so this is how I sort of think about that, though, right? Is the consumer is not going to know, like we're not going to see that massive thing until it hits a tipping point. In other words, I very distinctly remember when Uber was first launched.
I do too.
Right. And I can't remember the year anymore, but I remember I was in San Francisco for Inman. And somebody's like pulling out their phone. I'm like, I'll call an Uber. I'm like, what the hell's an Uber? It's like, it's this, you call a black car using your phone kind of deal. I was like, that's stupid. I was like, this was like, whatever. It's
I want to sit in a gross taxi.
Right. I mean, but we just didn't. And then it took maybe 2 years. And then I took my first Uber ride. I haven't taken a taxi since then.
Right.
So my point is, I think, and this is what we have to watch with Open Door. This is what we have to watch with iBuyers, with Power Buyers. Again, maybe you guys have done this study. I want someone to go and talk to those consumers and ask them, would you do it the old way?
Yeah.
Once you've experienced that, would you do it the old way?
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that most of them won't.
Yeah.
And that's something I've written about for the last
For sure.
5 years.
We
Which
both
is,
agree the hand-holding experience and the emotion of helping somebody buy and sell real estate. So I want to touch on this just for a second. So what do we tell our friends watching this right now that are now like, oh my God, what does this mean to me? Like we're just tactically, we're like, better start working on your buyer consultation.
Yep.
Better start taking the time to show people what it is that you do and why your value is
That's
there.
right.
Because if you're just going to do this, sure, I'll show you the house.
Sure.
That's a $50 an hour job, right? Like what we need to be is like, let me help you understand whether you're buying your 15th house or your first house, the experience and how I'm going to do it because you're showing value.
This is this is where I should be interviewing you, right, on my podcast, because here's how I look at it. I have some ideas, but I'm not a coach, right?
Yeah, but you have
I'm
ideas and I want your ideas.
Right, so I'll tell you the ideas and then you could tell me like, well, that's totally crazy, and then we could talk about it. I think my ideas go like this. In the short term, like number one, if I were coaching some agent today, the number one thing I think I would tell them is you need to understand what's going on with inflation.
Right.
You need to know what's going on with rates. You need to get a little bit of appreciate of why. Because if there's ever a time that you should be going to any of your young clients, any of your clients, period, who are even moderately on the fence, if you do not go and take a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 3.5%, when nominal inflation is 7%,
Brian, you listening?
right? Go sell whatever else you got to sell and buy a freaking house,
right?
Even if it's in a town or an area you don't want to live in.
You look at the 50-year case study of inflation, and the only thing that outperforms it every time forever is a house.
It's just so I'm like, look, if you once agents I can understand that. Because we do the whole like millennials want to buy a house but they can't, and rent versus own. Like, dude, forget all that to some extent.
I agree. Forget all that.
Forget all that to some extent. It's 3.5%.
Right.
When there's money and we're dealing with money, it's a different scenario versus what I want to do in convenience.
This is your house versus inflation.
Short term right
house
now,
versus
inflation.
inflation.
You need to do it.
Yes.
There's 7,000 videos from our clients immediately. Your house versus inflation, which one wins?
Yeah, and I agree. Like, we can sit here and speculate about what we see potentially coming, but whatever that is, it only benefits an agent if they really say, you know what, I'm going to absolutely dial in my value proposition for buyers and sellers, be more clear in how I communicate that with my marketing messages, and focus on delivering an unbelievable experience and building loyalty within my database.
But there's a second piece of this, right? And I think this is the part where I'm real curious about. When I look at training, when I look at a lot of the education, when I look at the coaching, when I look at a lot of that in the industry today, a lot of it's around sales skills and these soft skills. And I'm not saying they're not important. Of course they're important. That's what agents are really great at. However, with what's coming, there might have to be a lot more product skills and product training.
I was thinking the same thing when you were talking before. Yeah.
Because, it's one thing to be like, my value is I can hold your hands, I know cut. Dude, that's great and all, but if I'm paying you by the hour, I need to know that you have looked at every home builder in this neighborhood.
1,000%.
You know what the different types of pipe that's in this house versus that house. The type of construction that's like. I need
you're
you
speaking.
Actually
You're speaking of our clients' love language right now, because that's the degree of separation.
Right. I think that's
the true market expert who says, "No, Rob, you and your wife, you need to be over here." And let me tell you why. Because I took the time to learn everything that was your non-negotiables, the things that mattered most to you. It's this, this, and this, and here's why.
Or even at a minimum, like, why is this house so expensive?
Right.
Well, it's because this house was built by a builder for his daughter back in 1948, and he used the very best material.
So that's 15 minutes of that interview, Jimmy. What do you think?
Well, they haven't talked about the skill of really using and working your CRM. And if you have a farm and you don't have the CRM, it's a train wreck. So you need those two pieces. And they've talked about sales skills and what do they call soft skills or whatever. But I think that where we need to really focus is how well am I using my database in connection with my farm? It's like the fruit and vegetables. You got to have both. Just having a farm, unless you're using your CRM effectively, you're going to be left in the dust.
Yes, and I agree with that so much. And that's why people need to learn how to do video, because they need to express to their audience, to anybody listening or watching, what their value is. You have to display your value, not just come to my open house video, not just I just listed this home video, not just I just sold this home video. That's all about you. You need to start being about the consumer, about the buyer, about the seller, and talk about your skills. And you do that by sharing your experiences and your knowledge, and what to avoid, what just came on the market, why you should buy now, what the interest rate has to do with inflation, because in over 50 years, Jimmy, the real estate has actually outperformed any other investment. And a lot of that's because of inflation, and inflation never goes away.
Well, and you showed it on the show yesterday, the brand story. Somebody has a problem. They meet a guide that takes them down this path. So when you're doing your video, you have to use that brand story path. Somebody had a problem. And if you can show them winning at the end, and this is why they got this house, and this is what this house did for them. If you just use video about your open house, that's not a story.
No.
And that's not going to capture it. Nobody's going to forward that to their friends.
No, it's advertising.
Right.
Yeah, nobody wants to share their advertising. You know, somebody, I just saw this open house. They're not going to share that, but they're going to share a story. And you have to become a storyteller, just like you said. And the other interesting thing in there was about the decentralization of real estate, which I think is very interesting, because I know in Vegas, Vegas is really a pretty trend-setting town. There's a lot of independent brokerages here, and that's kind of decentralizing from the franchise environment for whatever reason. And he didn't really get deep into why. He just said, it's happening.
Well, he did point to the blockchain technologies, and not just Bitcoin, but the whole blockchain technology and the Meta. The big companies that are their architecture is already laid out. They have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan, and it would be interesting to go to Meta meeting and see what they're doing, or somebody who's really an expert on blockchain. But that was the third trend. The first trend he talked about was something we've talked about on the show this whole week, is demographics, the Gen Z buyers. That demographic thing is driving stuff, and it's not going to stop driving stuff. And it's going to, supply and demand is going to stay. But, I think interest rates have gone up almost a full percent just this year.
3.8.
Just this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. John said that he saw a TV ad this morning that said rates are still under 3%. I said, that's an old ad.
Yep.
They're not.
No.
They went up to 3.8. And an MBA, if you go to that website, it'll show you, and tell you like I showed yesterday on the show, that, the rates have now gone up 3.6 to 3.8.
And Wells Fargo thinks that's so great. They're advertising, hey, buy a house here under 4%, 3.78%, buy a house here under 4%. So, and because you might not be able to get that a month from now, even.
Exactly. And inflation is so high. And if you're only paying 4% for the money, you've got to be able to explain that to the buyers that are on the fence. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to articulate it with statistics so that they believe you. Mm-hmm. Whether you find something that we've printed, or one of the blogs that we've done about it, whatever. But people like to see things in writing. And if you're doing a video, you need to learn how to reverse the print so that you can show somebody, get my report about why you should buy your real estate now at this interest rate, because inflation is this, and how much value you will have, over the next 5-10 years. You've got to be able to articulate those things.
Well, and I think when you choose a source that you're going to quote, the Mortgage Bankers Association is credible, but Wells Fargo, they have their name on it. I would rather hear something from Wells Fargo. This is these guys. This is their living. At Mortgage Bankers Association, just a bunch of guys sitting around in banker suits. So who are you choosing to use as your your backup data, your information, your expert source?
Yeah. What do you think about the buyer agency and the DOJ? They're still out thinking about whether or not the seller should pay their competitor. I don't know what's going to happen to that. I mean, this gentleman thinks 100% the seller's not going to be paying the buyer's agent anymore.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, as Tom said, how does this serve the consumer? I can't believe our government is messing around with this. It's been realtors have been doing this for 100 years, and like Tom said, they try it in Europe where it's 1-on-1 or whatever, and it's not working. It doesn't work. They don't cooperate. It doesn't help the consumer. What we have right now does serve the consumer. And is there some distinction between an agent that's been doing this 20 years and somebody who just got out of real estate school? As far as the consumer goes, I just want to see the house.
Yeah.
So, but that guy that just got into business and the guy that's been here 20 years, they have the same cost for gas. They have the same cost for MLS membership. They have the same operating costs. So the fact that somebody's been doing this 20 years, I don't think that necessarily makes them worth more money unless, as Rob said, R.O.B said, unless they're doing a $35 million beach deal with environmental issues.
Right.
Now it makes sense. But for the rank and file, for the houses in Las Vegas, you don't need a whole lot of expertise. You need a lockbox key.
Right. But to get people's attention, you do need the skill and knowledge and to get yourself out in front of people. If you don't get their attention, you can't tell them what you want them to hear.
That's why some agents do 5 deals a month. Some agents do a deal every 5 months. Because they figured out the marketing part. It's getting in front of the people. It's getting people to call you. The new agents don't have that figured out yet. And that's why it's hard for them.
Yes, it is. Yeah. We had that new agent in class yesterday. How long was Gary in business?
It's just first year.
First year,
yeah.
And he's going. So I think the story about him is he doesn't need to take continuing ed right now, but he is, because he wants to learn as much as he can to be the expert. And I think he said he was a stockbroker. And
I don't remember.
I think he did, and when I thought I heard that, because what came to my mind when he said it is, well, a stockbroker, you got to know about these companies that you're pushing, right? So
that's true, but people come to you as a stockbroker. You're not doing the marketing part, which you're talking about.
That's correct, but I think he understands that you have to have knowledge. That was my point, and because he's coming to these classes and he's commenting and he's interacting. And he's not afraid if you say, well, we don't necessarily agree with that, it should be like this. He's okay with that because he wants to know from us, the people who have been doing it. What have we been doing it 70 years together?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Anyway, So I just thought this was so valuable to share with everybody. And people have got to get one thing I wanted to say. We're so lucky in Vegas because we're a new town and we don't have a lot of the problems with that perhaps California or the East Coast has when it comes to knowing a lot about who built the house and what problems there are because of it. And we're pretty, we have inspections. I know we had that Kitech plumbing problem, but we really don't have a lot of big deals. We have the erosion, that's a problem, but there's certain things people need to know about. Is it in a flood zone? Is it this, and so I think that learning the product and learning the location and things like that are very important as well. And those are things that you can share on video.
Well, there was so many articles and news reports about blizzards and stuff back east. And they said something about Alabama or somewhere got a tornado because of this weather pressure systems and stuff like that. It's created a tornado. Really? We don't have that here.
No. And we need to tell people those things and the benefits of it. I mean, when I was in Atlanta, Pennsylvania, actually, you needed snow tires, you needed chains, you needed boots, you needed umbrellas, you needed raincoats, you needed fur coats, you needed all these things, earmuffs and what have you. That stuff all costs money.
I was teaching a class for this, I was doing a webinar for Canada, actually. And one of my students was saying, look, my internet signal's kind of wonky because we're snowed in. I said, oh, I feel bad. She said, well, at least I can go to class. I said, I'm sorry, your internet connection not good. She said, at least I can go to class. So she couldn't leave her house. She couldn't get out. The door was snowed shut.
Wow. Unbelievable. Yeah. Well, Jimmy, I've got to run. I've got to go to AT&T and get John's phone fixed or nobody can call him.
Hey, that's important. All right. I'll see you tomorrow or whatever.
Okay. Anetta's on my show tomorrow.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Love you all. Bye.